Wait. Before we start, just want to make sure we're clear here. While this podcast talks about sobriety, mental health, and addiction, it is not meant to replace professional medical advice. Welcome to Sisters in Sobriety.
I'm Kathleen.
And I'm Sonia.
And we're ex-sisters-in-law, brought together in marriage and bonded through our sobriety journey.
Join us as we talk sobriety, addiction, and everything in between. You're in for quite a ride. And our Substack is buzzing with amazing content, from creative mocktail recipes to insightful courses and reflective exercises. There is something for everyone. Don't miss out. It's a great way to add some extra joy and depth to your journey. Check it out. Welcome to Sisters in Sobriety. Today we are joined by Shivani Gupta, Ayurvedic practitioner, functional health expert, and author of the newly released Hay House book, The Inflammation Code. Her work introduces elemental design, a personalized approach to understanding your health personality, and how your unique mind-body constitution influences inflammation, energy, and disease risk. Welcome, Dr. Gupta.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So to start, can you share a little bit about your origin story? What first drew you to study inflammation and root cause healing?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Houston, Texas, to an immigrant family. And growing up, I lived in two worlds. When I lived in Houston with my parents, if I got sick, I'd go to the pediatrician. They'd write a script for antibiotics. I'd get better. And I simultaneously grew up in this world where I'd go to India every summer to visit my grandparents. I'd stay in my grandma's home. And anytime I got sick in India, she would just mix up some stinky spices, whether it was turmeric or ginger or even stinkier than those, and she'd give it to me and I'd get all better. And so I grew up living in two worlds where I was like, well, when I'm in the United States, I'm trying to acclimate and be a typical American kid, eating that typical American diet. When I go to India, it's like you went to the moon, like a completely different planet. And so I lived in those worlds and I kept wondering, who's right? Because I'm this sick kid. I have this like weaker constitution, it seems, than everybody else around me. And I feel like I don't have an immune system. The universe just never gave me one. And so finally, by the time I got to college, I had taken probably 100 rounds of antibiotics. And in high school, they were just like, here's some Augmentin, you'll be better. No one back then thought about it. They didn't realize, hey, there could be a negative effect to overdoing it with this girl. And so it was in college. I was there visiting for like a holiday break, Christmas break. I got sick. My family was like, maybe we should take her to the hospital. She is really sick. And we ended up at this Dr. Gupta's office. And he's like, okay, I've got the solution. Here's 13 medications. This is your prescription. And some voice inside of me came out screaming and was like, no, we're not doing this again. We keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. You need to dumb your antibiotic down a couple notches. You don't get to explode my gut. And what are those other 12 medications? Oh, they're for symptoms? No, I'm not doing it. Everything has a side effect, and you didn't even give me a probiotic. And so that was the moment where I was like, that's it. I'm taking control. And I looked at my parents and I said, we're in the land of yoga and Ayurveda. And I think there's something there for me. From what I've seen, I think they solve a lot of health problems. I want to go figure this out. I'm going. By then, my parents were very burnt out, but successful entrepreneurs. And they were like, all right, we'll go detox with you at these weird places. We're not letting you run around India alone. And so we went north, south, east, west. And I would just sit at the guru's feet in these crazy Ayurveda centers. And I was like, wow, everyone around here, it's interesting. The whole world, Germany, Europe, Russia, there's people from everywhere sitting in India, living in Ayurveda centers because they healed there. They reversed their major chronic diseases. And they never want to leave a healing space like that because they know they'll go and recreate their disease. And so I was sold. I was like, this is incredible. I'm going to study this. And once I did, and once I healed myself, I said, this is a wisdom that's so powerful. And my job is to keep building it in a bite-sized way and take this home to the West so no one ends up in the position I do. Like, why are we all so sick? And we're looking at our parents' generation and grandparents' generation. Everyone suffers so heavily with disease, chronic disease, inflammation-based disease. And so that was kind of the fire that was put under me in my very early 20s. And now 25 years later, that's all I do is I try to teach this wisdom to us in a way that we can apply and we can use.
So how did you bridge Ayurveda and like modern functional medicine? And how did your training evolve across those disciplines?
So I have a question. So I studied in India, which is like very classic. And Ayurveda is an ancient wisdom. This is a science of health, healing, and medicine that's over 5,000 years old. There's these ancient texts. And if you go to India to detox, which I recommend to everybody, it's profound. It's so healing, but it's not easy. It's not fun. It's pretty invasive. And so when I thought, how am I going to bring this west? I have for 25 years kept trying different ways. I ended up doing my master's in Ayurvedic sciences, which I loved. In my herbology classes, the professor talked about the benefits of all the super spices. And I thought, wow, everything you're naming are the benefits that we seek here in the West in superfoods. When I'm eating blueberries and spinach and chia seeds and all these things, I want the anti-inflammatory antioxidant benefits. And you're telling me coriander, cumin, cinnamon, red chili powder, ginger, turmeric, like these are things an Indian household eats every single day. And you're telling me they have such profound benefits? And so I ended up doing my PhD dissertation on turmeric. And I love turmeric. I really fell in love with that spice. I think it's incredible as a healing tool. And it's a tool. It's one more tool in our toolkit, but it's pretty profound. And so once I studied it, I actually ended up building my own supplement company around turmeric because everyone around me was like, I have a cold. What can I take for that? You could take turmeric for that. Someone would say, I have knee pain. I'm like, you can take turmeric for that. So I was basically the turmeric girl for a lot of years there because I was studying it at such a deep level. And then people would say, okay, well, whose can I take? And I actually couldn't figure out whose was high quality enough. And so I ended up building my own. And that's been my work for the last decade. But as I teach about turmeric at orthopedic conferences and neurology conferences and longevity conferences, I realized I'm putting a pill in your hands. And in the West, we're so used to a pill for a problem. We're like, just give me the one pill and my life will be solved. And so about 5-7 years ago, especially around the pandemic, I thought I want to start teaching Ayurveda in a way that we can utilize as women, as we're aging, so that it can support us through all these stages of life and help us feel better and have the vibrancy and the energy that we deserve to have. Because it's not easy. Going through life, it's not easy to go through aging, certainly. And so that's where I keep iterating on how to use Ayurveda. So the book I wrote is kind of the entire guidebook. The Inflammation Code is this guidebook put together of all the years of working with clients one-on-one and all the things I've been teaching them and everything in my group programs, all in a format that you can start to apply day by day, step by step.
So in the book, you talk a lot about elemental design. And can you explain to us a little bit about what the elemental design framework is?
Sure. So in ancient Ayurveda, one of the central concepts we have is called the doshas. And I took the doshas and translated it into elemental design. As I wrote that book, I was like, if I use 100 Sanskrit words on people, they are going to completely fall off and not remember anything I'm teaching. So there's a lot of ways I really simplified that language in the book. And so element design is this understanding that we are all made up of nature's 5 elements: air, ether, fire, water, and earth. And when you look at those elements, we're all made up of them, but we have some that are more dominant than others. So in Ayurveda, those concepts or those constitutions, mind-body constitutions, are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. In the West, we pronounce them Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So a Vata person is an air and ether person. You can imagine air could be a beautiful breeze, or it could be as crazy as a tornado. Like it could come in different forms. And so in the same way, a Vata person has certain traits. This person can be taller or shorter than anyone in their demographic. They can tend to run a little dry, tend to run a little cold, dry nails, dry hair. They're always reaching for a sweater. This is someone who has constant energy. They're constantly in motion. And so a Vata person is always moving, never wants to sit still. Mind goes 100 miles a minute. They're kind of a busybody. This is that person in your life who just won't sit tight, and you can kind of feel that their energy is always in motion. Vatas tend to struggle with anxiety, insomnia, and constipation due to that dryness. And so my job as a practitioner is to sit them down and say, let's build a structured routine. Let's build a circadian routine, a diet that's so wholesome, because Vata people tend to run through their day and not eat. They're like, oh, I had coffee, I had some green juice, I had some celery sticks, I'm fine. And they're the only crew that can really do that, can run through the day without eating. And so our job as practitioners is to say 3 square meals a day, healthy fat, grounding root vegetables, and really build a routine so that a Vata person can feel more grounded and centered and complete what they start. So that is one template. And all of us have a primary and a secondary constitution. So as I go through them, you might be like, well, I'm 2 of those. That's totally normal. We can have a primary and a secondary. And some people are balanced in all 3. Some people are 3 doshic. And so the second one is called Pitta. That's fire. So that's anyone who has reddish skin, reddish hair, early graying in their hair. They're more medium-bodied. They're not as lean as Vata. They're not as sturdy as the Kapha crew. They're right in between. A Pitta person is fire, and it's fire with some water. So this is your person who's ambitious. They're a go-getter. They are a visionary. They are passionate. They tend to be sharp like fire. They're passionate and heated up all the time, but also can be a little sharp. When stressed, they are perfectionists. And if they get they're kind of like a volcano. So when out of balance, a Pitta person tends to erupt and explode, and the people around them are collateral damage. And so Pitta people need to manage themselves kind of like a nuclear reactor, because a Pitta person gets hangry. They have a strong digestive fire. They have a tendency towards being inflamed, tendency towards eating hot, spicy, oily foods that they're not supposed to have. And so they tend to have heartburn, like it's just their skin erupts in different ways. Pittas are just a fiery crew. And so the way to balance Pitta is cool, calm, collected. Summer foods. Sleep is important. A circadian lifestyle is also important, but keeping cool, calm, collected, hydrated, these kinds of things are what I recommend to the Pittas. I'm a Pitta, so I'm always like, I understand you guys. And then the third one is Kapha. Kapha is an earth body type. It's earth with water. So a Kapha person is going to be sturdier. They're going to be stronger. They're very loyal. They're very one thing at a time. They tend to have oily, curly hair, oilier skin, rounder features, rounder eyes. They're so earthy. They're loyal, kind, giving. They're the best friend. They think of everyone else before themselves. From a health standpoint, they can struggle with a sluggish metabolism. They can struggle with low mood or depression. They are earth and water. That water can lead to congestion and lung issues. And so our job as practitioners is to show Kapha, 1, move your energy in the morning. When you get that energy moving, you can get more done in your day. Kaphas tend to get deep, profound sleep. And so it's also important to get their energy moving first thing. And then we teach Kapha how to eat like really warm cooked foods that are easier to digest because they have a little bit of a less strong gut digestive fire. And then they're more supported. So it's interesting that nowadays we're all taught huge intermittent fasting and cold plunging and sauna for everybody and raw cold smoothies for everybody and all these things. And Ayurveda said, no, we are all bio-individual. We are all different. And the source of our health struggles is all different. And the way we address those has to be constitution first and customized to the person. Otherwise, you're not going to get results. And so that's a big piece of what I like to teach is we are all different and let's understand ourselves. Let's take a quiz and know our elemental design. And once we start balancing for that, maybe it's not health struggles we have. Maybe we're just fighting against our nature. And so I have that quiz on my website at drshivani.com. And people take that quiz and then they email me back and they're like, how did you know that about me? And I'm like, this is 5,000 years old wisdom. I get to be a teacher of that wisdom.
Is there one of those archetypes, essentially, once we take the quiz, that is more prone to certain things like autoimmune issues or inflammatory issues? And how early in life does that inflammatory wiring begin?
Good question. So I would imagine autoimmune affects Vata and Pitta more. Vata is going to have vagus nerve dysregulation. They're going to be under that chronic stress burden more. There's a lot more anxiety in the system. They can run really depleted because they choose not to eat much. They don't need to. and they can kind of get away with not eating, but then that also can lead to so many nutrient deficiencies. They tend to be on the move all the time. It's like your endurance runner. And so that's why from the Ayurvedic perspective, we want to build resilience. We want to build strength. We want to build that groundedness into that system. So I could definitely have seen a lot of people who are Vata struggle with that. Pittas tend to have a template of overdo, overburn, burn out, burn the candle at both ends. And so Pittas too can really generate those autoimmune conditions because Pittas tend to run inflamed. Like we do literally the one thing all the time that will cause inflammation in the system. And the whole point of my book, The Inflammation Code, is to highlight chronic low-grade persistent inflammation is the problem. And we can't have that all the time. And then when it comes to Kapha, Kapha is much more slow and steady winds that raise, but Kapha can have more of those metabolic issues. So you're going to see that person struggle more with diabetes and these kinds of struggles. I definitely think we can see autoimmune in that crew too, because sometimes you're battling so hard against your nature. Kapha is like we're living in a world nowadays that says we should all have side hustles, weekend hustles, night hustles. We should work all the time, or what are we doing? We're not productive. You know, we're being taught this idea that actually doesn't work for all body types at all. The Kapha body type is the supportive role. It's that grandma energy or that mountain energy. And they're like the support loving crew that keeps the wheels running and the trains running. And so if that type gets so overstressed by battling against their nature and then keeps falling back to maybe overeating or that metabolic issue, then they too can struggle. So to answer your question, any constitution can struggle with autoimmune.
Okay.
Inflammation kind of can start by battling against your own nature. And a big piece of what Ayurveda teaches is the circadian clock. Ayurveda came up with the circadian clock. And so if we're battling against our own nature and our circadian clock, then that is the perfect setup for being inflamed and creating our own diseases and issues.
So if we take those variables like sleep and nutrition, how does sleep architecture affect our inflammatory load?
Sleep is a big deal. In Ayurveda, we teach that 10 to 2 on the clock every single day, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., is what we call Pitta time of day. And it's when the Pitta fire comes out and it's meant to clean and clear our system. Clear the lymphatic system, inflammation. And the problem is a lot of us are doing things that affect our sleep quality. If I go out for a big dinner too late, I'm going to affect my sleep quality. If I have wine at dinner, I'm going to completely affect my sleep quality. If I'm working late or on my iPhone and have that blue light in my face until 10 o'clock, I'm going to affect my sleep quality. And it's interesting, modern science has proven the circadian clock to be true and is taking it so deep into genetics and things like that. So we know that we have a melatonin release at 10 p.m. and we are supported to then go to bed. But what are we doing? We're living lifestyles that completely defy circadian rhythm. All our lights are on, blue lights, working late, all these kinds of things. And so what Ayurveda teaches us is build a self-hygiene sleep habit, sleep hygiene, sleep ritual habit that will give you high quality sleep. So cut off dinner by 7 p.m., 3 hours before bedtime. Cut off any work or anything really stimulating to the mind by 8 p.m. Then start to wind down house, responsibilities, everything by 9 p.m. By 10 p.m., I always switch into a cup of deep sleep tea because I develop my own Ayurvedic teas. So I have teas that have adaptogens like brahmi and ashwagandha that'll settle my mind and digestive system for a good night's sleep. I'm in my mid-40s, so I'm testing out HRT, which is an imperfect science right now, but I find progesterone can really help with sleep quality. So that one I'm committed to. Then I have my own sleep gummies that I'll use if I'm having a couple nights of bad sleep and I need to ensure I get perfect sleep. I'll reach for sleep gummies that have a little bit of melatonin and GABA and L-theanine. I'll do different things like taking a hot shower is an easy one. And then when our temperature drops, that improves our sleep quality. You can take a hot bath. We have a lot of different self-care rituals that we teach in Ayurveda that are actually very detoxing to the body. And so if you can practice, like I set alarms on my phone that go off all day. My one for water and supplements was just going off. But at nighttime, I'll have one at 8 o'clock that's like time for self-care, time to wind down, just to remind myself to make the time. Because otherwise I too will be like work, emails and keep working on the things instead of pausing at some point and saying, hey, can you give 10 minutes to yourself so you have better sleep tonight? Because if you sleep well tonight, you know you're going to win at inflammation and thus win at your health. But it's just about making that space and making that time. And so I believe in starting things in tiny slices. 5 minutes for a cup of tea. Just start there. And when we open up a slice of time, I find we're going to open it wider and wider and wider and add on to it. We'll say, okay, well, I'm making a cup of tea. Could I turn on my heating pad in bed? Could I add a gratitude journal? Could I add reading a book for 5 minutes? And so that's really my dream for everyone is, can I show you how to open slices of time that you then fit in more and more for yourself?
You touched briefly on this, but the sleep temperature. And so I am someone who I love to be cozy and I love to be warm. But I do find, and especially as I get older, they'll be like in the middle of the night, I am just sweating. And so I'm learning to turn the temperature down right before bed. So I'm still like cozy while I'm falling asleep. But then as I'm falling asleep, the temperature in the house will start to go down. And so is there an ideal sleep temperature?
You know, there's a lot of science on that topic right now. And I've met with different companies. There's a company called ChiliPad. There's a company called 8 Sleep. So there's companies who have built with technology these like mattress covers that will adapt with AI to your ideal temperature. That's like a Cadillac level high-end solution. I do not have one of those in my house. In my house, I set the house to 70. And like right now the house is at 70 and it's cold. Like it's just the right temperature for sleep. And it keeps us all asleep all night. So 70 is our ideal temperature. And then I have ceiling fans in all the rooms for all the people who run hot. I don't need one yet. But for everyone else, there's a ceiling fan. So they also stay even colder than that at night. And then soon enough, I'll get one too. But we have certain herbs, just so you know, in Ayurveda that help with hot flashes and night sweats, because we consider that a Pitta issue, that we are generating that heat and that heat is coming out of us. And so we take different herbs like shatavari or tulsi, and those can help us as well with that.
Okay, and so let's get into these herbs and get into the turmeric. Let's start with, where do most people go wrong when they're trying to eat anti-inflammatory?
Sure. So turmeric is definitely having its heyday. We're having those, like that decade called the turmeric decade. And you can see it when you go to the grocery store. It's like turmeric on tortillas and turmeric in your orange juice. And it's kind of diluting the message of the power of turmeric, in my opinion. When I studied turmeric in depth, almost a decade ago now, it was that there are thousands of scientific papers in the medical journals that explain to us the power of the extracts of turmeric and how anti-inflammatory they are. So to answer your question, most people tell me, I juice my turmeric. I buy turmeric fresh and I juice it and I drink it every day. And I'm like, good job. Juicing things is great. Eating things raw is great. We're in a society right now that talks a lot about the benefits of eating raw, eating the whole plant, the whole food. What's interesting is in ancient India, they very rarely used fresh turmeric. They used that as a garnish. They used it as a pickle, but they didn't really use fresh turmeric and eat it. They took fresh turmeric and they dried it into the kitchen culinary spice turmeric. And India is the largest consumer of turmeric because we put it in all our dishes. It's in breakfast, lunch, and dinner and what you eat. It's in our lentils, it's in our vegetables, it's in everything. But when we cooked with turmeric, we already had the science built in, where Indian cooking or Ayurvedic cooking had black pepper or a healthy fat always present. So if you're going to cook with turmeric, you're going to add ghee or an olive oil or coconut oil or some type of oil, and you're going to have black pepper in a specific spice we have called garam masala. And that spice mix has black pepper. So there was always this technology of these things coming together in this proportion. So kitchen culinary spice turmeric is effective. It's good for you. But now we come to the extract level. We're living in modern day society under a level of stress, chronic stress, and a toxin burden that, in my belief, is what's really causing this level of chronic low-grade, persistent inflammation in our systems that's leaving us susceptible to everything that's coming for us. I know I come from a family of diabetics. And so when I look at my family, I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to prevent that from coming for me? Well, it comes down to lifestyle, exercise, all these things. And when it comes to the turmeric plant, only 3 to 5% of the turmeric plant is the curcuminoids. And those curcuminoids are the most effective piece of the plant that we have studied to date to reduce inflammation. And so to me, what's so fascinating is when we talk about turmeric or curcumin from turmeric impacts up to 30 different inflammatory pathways. It impacts these major master switches of inflammation like NF-kappa B, TNF-alpha, interleukin-6, and so many of the interleukin and COX pathways, COX and LOX. Then it's also antioxidant and reverses oxidation in the system. So as we're aging, we're like, God, I just feel like everything's aching and everything doesn't feel the same. That's oxidation. We're like the Tin Man over time. And so turmeric goes in there and undoes oxidation and the things causing that oxidation, which I love, like a true preventive. Then turmeric's antiviral, antibacterial, and antifungal. And I mentioned as a kid, I was always sick. And so when I understood that piece, I was like, okay, this is my warrior shield to not get sick. But what I also love is turmeric goes in there like this ultimate janitor and undoes any damage in our system. So if we have leaky gut, it helps heal the gut, helps get rid of bad bacteria in the gut, but keeps the good in place. Gets rid of senescent cells, which is old cells or old zombie cells running around, knocking into everything, causing damage in our system. Gets rid of malignant cells. So over time, we're all going to have our habits, whatever they are. I grew up living in America as a typical kid. I drank my soda, and I ate my fast food, and I did all the things I did that we didn't think were that bad back then. And now look at what we're struggling with our health as we're approaching 40s, 50s, and beyond. And so I kind of look at turmeric as a way to kind of start to erase that past as I'm moving forward and really support me on my anti-aging plan, which is how do I stay healthy and vibrant as I age?
And so you mentioned a few things about like the bioavailability of turmeric and the combinations. And so so we're going to set aside sort of like raw turmeric, right?
Yeah.
What are the best ways for us to get turmeric? So is it in that garam masala, like with black pepper and other spices? Is it in a tea form? Can I just throw a little bit in my yogurt? Like what reasonable like ways for example, if someone's not going to make a curry with a bunch of turmeric, what are the best ways for us to get it?
Sure. So if you're going to consume kitchen culinary spice, the regular turmeric powder at your grocery store, add black pepper or a healthy fat to it to ensure that it absorbs. When you add black pepper, you're increasing that absorption by 2,000%. When you're adding a healthy fat very deliberately, it's going to cross the blood-brain barrier. And so it's going to help with anything neurocognitive and brain health related that you want. So that's like the basics. Now, when it comes to that turmeric plant, only 3 to 5% is those curcuminoids. Those are the most anti-inflammatory piece. And so when it comes to those curcuminoids, about 10 years ago, I extracted a form of curcumin that reaches way above the standard. And so when we go to Amazon or our typical drugstore, and we go to buy turmeric, the problem is there's no information. And about a decade ago, there was an article in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal that said up to 75% of the supplements at our big box retailers do not have the active ingredient or any of the ingredients stated on the label, which means there's a lot of games that are being played in the supplement world. So at that point, I stopped going to my big box retailer and buying vitamin D because I was like, well, I am one of those kids. I need vitamin D to do what I need it to do. I don't have time for games because otherwise I get sick. Like this year I did catch the flu and I was like, see, what is that? How does that happen? I do so much for my health. Yeah. So when it comes to turmeric, I really think of it as a powerhouse solution. And to have it in our toolkit on a daily basis gives us not just the anti-inflammatory support, which we need, but the antioxidant support as we're aging. Oxidation has a piece and a role in inflammation. It's gut supportive. We know all health starts in the gut from Ayurveda. And then it's also this immune support as well. And so I really look at it as my insurance policy, my brain support, my heart support, my all organ support because of that anti-inflammatory effect. And that's where supplements come in. So there are an entire class of supplements called the medical grade supplements that are used in functional medicine nowadays. If you go to any of your integrative practitioners, your chiropractor, your acupuncturist, they are reaching into an entirely different toolkit of supplements. that are proven to work. Like we all in this sector invest in the science to prove what we are doing. We third-party test, heavy metals test, microbe test, potency we're testing, pre-production. And so I built a turmeric formula to go into doctors' offices to prove to all doctors that they can use turmeric safely and effectively with their patient. And so we've got resounding results. People tell me all the time, they're like, I buy turmeric and it does nothing. And then I buy yours and I feel the difference. Like, what is that? And I'm like, well, I happen to be obsessed with turmeric. And I built it for that one goal, was for us to get the benefits. And so that's part of what I teach all day is how can we have every practitioner say to us, you can take turmeric for that, and then we'll take less of maybe drugs or NSAIDs that could have nasty side effects. I'm one of those people, I can't just take stuff all day that's sold at the drugstore. My body won't tolerate it. And so I need to always look for those natural remedies and natural supports.
If we switch a little bit to talking about mental inflammation, what does that mean to you?
So I wrote this entire book on winning at inflammation by living the Ayurveda lifestyle. And I taught elemental design and living according to your circadian clock and build gut health as the center of all health, because your gut health is your brain health, is everything. Then I did a whole chapter on the super spices because I'm so passionate about spices. And I was like, this is your mindful medicine chest. Whenever you're feeling not well, reach for this spice or that spice. Yeah. So I got through all these chapters of the book and I was like, this is how you eat a sattvic diet and how you win. And finally, as I was wrapping up the book, I thought two things are going to happen. One, I might have driven everyone nuts and given too many health tips and stressed them out. And now they're going to think health is a full-time job, which was not the goal of the book. It's really, the goal is to teach you a rhythm with health. But secondly, I realized we can do so much for our health, but if we are going to be chronically stressed, we will create chronic inflammation and disease anyways. And so many women who I meet are walking and exercising, and they go to lift at the gym, and they fit in some Pilates or yoga or something in their day. They stretch some. They're eating well. They're trying to jam protein down their throats all day like it's their full-time job. They are doing the work, trying to detox, and either they have a vibration plane or a trampoline, or they're watching that content like I am and saying, I'm not ready for that homework yet, but thank you. Like, we're watching bone health is a new job. Yeah. Like the perimenopause, menopause agenda online of what we're supposed to do to stay well is tremendous. And ancient Ayurveda said, look, this can be simple. Live on your circadian clock, love your gut, and slow down just enough for your body to stay in rhythm. And so mental inflammation is really this term that my mind came up with that the universe gave me when I said, look, I need to explain to all of society, our chronic stress alone will create our disease. So we have to stay resilient and build the practices it takes to not be under chronic stress. That comes from living on the circadian clock, which will reduce chronic stress, but also make a little space in your day, whether it's meditation or breath work, or go for a mindful walk where you collect some peace. Or I teach a habit called tea time is me time. Because this one habit is the way I can fit in a time and a tiny slice of peace. So every day, 5 times a day, I make a cup of tea and I pause. I just pause in my day and I ask myself a couple simple questions. How are you doing today? What do you need to change for today to be better? What do you need to change for this week to be better? Have you structured today so you're taking care of yourself? And the majority of the time, the answer is no, you didn't plan to have dinner today. No, you need to make some space in your calendar. You should say no to that person. You don't want to talk to that person or meet that person. Change this. And it's our own intuition coming through, showing us what we actually need to do to stay healthy, mentally, physically, emotionally, and to bring alignment. Because the whole goal of Ayurveda is to bring body, mind, and spirit into alignment. The issue with modern day society is we are running rampant on a schedule. And when we're free, we're on social media. We're not giving our brain or body space to calibrate. And so mental inflammation was this idea that came through where I said, as a society, mental inflammation will cause physical inflammation, and we're going to stay in this feedback loop forever. And thus, we're going to create this chronic disease burden consistently without even realizing it. So can we bring awareness to it and then catch ourselves? So when something really stressful happens, I catch that and I'm like, this is happening. I'm not taking this as physical stress. This is all okay. I am safe. It is fine. And I think we need to practice that more if we're going to stay healthy.
And you did mention briefly that you talk a bit about the gut. And so so I think this also has to do, and we are sisters in sobriety, with alcohol consumption. And so how does alcohol affect gut permeability and the microbiome balance? And how important is that?
It's tremendously important. In Ayurveda, we teach gut health is the center of all health. And we call the gut our digestive fire. We have a word for it, Agni. Agni means fire. And so the way we teach it is everything we do all day is actually supposed to be in honor of that gut digestive fire. So when you wake up in the morning, we teach tongue scraping and oil pulling because everything we do for our oral health or oral microbiome benefits our gut microbiome. And so gently scraping the tongue in the morning for just 7 to 14 times, it takes less than 30 seconds. You're going to be gently scraping all the organs of the body because we teach that all the organs of the body are reflected on the tongue. Just like in reflexology, they're all reflected on the bottom of the foot. And so we're teaching constantly these little habits that improve gut health. But in modern day society, there's a lot of things we do that damage gut health. Everything around us, furniture-wise, carpet-wise, any material used in our lives is usually made with pretty toxic ingredients, whether it's VOCs or phthalates or BPAs, whether it's microplastics. You might be drinking out of a plastic water bottle as opposed to glass all day. And the plastic is going to have a microplastic burden. Maybe it's your pots and pans. Maybe it's environmental toxins. Could be where you live. Could be what they're spraying in the skies. Who knows? But it all comes down to the body is already under a toxic burden. Then we look at what we consume. Many of us are consuming processed ingredients, ultra-processed ingredients, seed oils, things like that. And so when we add on something like alcohol, which can be damaging to the gut and the gut lining, it's a pretty strong ingredient to put in the system. We just need to look at how much are we doing? How often are we doing this? Occasional drinking. Nowadays, according to the science, no drinking is what they're teaching us. But I believe it's okay to occasionally go out for a drink, a glass of wine, whatever it is you're going to do. But really being mindful of, okay, this is going to create some damage to the gut. What am I going to do to balance that and create a healthier gut? I would, if that was me, focus on really great probiotics, fermented foods. I would go and get a stool test every year and just do a check of how am I doing in terms of good bacteria and bad bacteria. Because just living modern day life, most of us are living through a time where we have gut dysbiosis, and we underestimate what that gut dysbiosis is doing for us or against us in terms of our leaky gut and thus us being inflamed on a daily basis.
What role does gut health play across all those elemental types that you talked about, or are certain more susceptible, for example, to changes with alcohol or react differently to alcohol?
So interesting. No one's asked me that question. So when you look at a Vata person, a Vata person is someone who tends to run dry and cold. They tend to not have oleation in that gut lining. And so our job is to teach them, eat ghee, eat healthy fats. Let's bring some oil into the system, some lubrication. And so anytime we bring something so strong or inflammatory into a Vata system, it's going to be that much more exacerbating to that gut lining or to that potential gut dysbiosis that's already there. The Vata type is going to be anxious. They're already going to be running stressed. And so we want to really support them in gut health. What they may not realize is more sugar, more alcohol. It's not helpful to the system. It's harmful. It's really going to cause more inflammation in the system. And what's interesting is some people, when they're drinking, go high. They get happy. Sometimes you go low. You feel low afterwards. And a Vata is more susceptible to that. Emotionally, they're going to be more susceptible. And they may not realize what that's playing, the role that that's playing for them to be so high and then so low. They're going to feel more of those extremes. Then when you look at the Pitta crew, Pitta tends to overdo everything. You put one glass in a Pitta's hand, they're going to want two, they're going to want three, they're just going to want to keep going. because the nature of a Pitta person is almost like an addictive personality. Pitta people just want more. They just want more of everything in their lives. I am one of those people. I just want everything. And I want it all at once. So it's like a nature you battle against. So with Pitta crew, we have a strong, robust digestive fire to tolerate a lot of things. But the nature of Pitta is overburn, overdo, anger, frustration, that type of person. And so you're going to tend to like already run inflamed, already be creating all your own leaky gut issues. And so when you add alcohol on top of that, then it's really this awareness of healing the gut, balancing that. One other interesting point, anytime we consume something sweet that is sweet on the inside, it's got a cooling effect to our system. It's going to calm us down. And it's going to create this feeling of like, okay, my anxiety is settled. And so that could be a reason for reaching for alcohol because it has the sweet effect and a cooling effect on many. And so you have to watch out for that, especially for Pitta, because Pitta's already going to reach for sugar and things to keep them cool and calmer all day long anyways. And so it might be an enhanced tendency to reach towards this as well. And then Kapha. Kapha people are definitely more resilient in the system. Usually their gut health is more robust than the other two types. They do have a tendency towards depression and feeling low. So a little bit of awareness around alcohol consumption and what that does for them is important. They do have the sluggish metabolism. So a little bit of support in terms of, okay, this is happening. Where do I need to exercise more, move my energy more so it doesn't take me into a lower mood because that's their tendency already. And so that's how I'd kind of look at it from the elemental design perspective. Elemental design, though, if you're meeting with a person, you start to really calibrate to that person. So for example, I'm a Pitta first, but I definitely have a lot of Vata tendencies, like a Vata mind that wants to go 200 miles an hour all the time. And so when I look at myself and balancing myself all day, I'll have conversations with myself where I'm like, that's it. No social media. Turn that off right now. You can't do that because my mind will keep just consuming. Then as a Pitta, I have to cut my workday and say, that's it, you're done. You cannot work anymore. Close your computer. You have to ease into bedtime, and that takes time. You can't be on your laptop after 8. And so what I love is the elemental design starts to bring this awareness of, oh, this is my Pitta tendency, or this is my Vata tendency. And then you can start to calibrate towards what balances each one.
That's so interesting. And so when you mention that, where you have to kind of catch yourself and say, like, we're turning off the social media, we're doing this. And so a lot of people for that type of that anxiety use alcohol, right? And so you were talking a little bit about your kind of rituals with, especially with the teas and things like that and the adaptogens. What kind of things can you recommend? What kind of supplements that are even in your line, for example, can you recommend to people that are sober curious, they're starting to learn to relax without alcohol? What would you recommend?
For sure. So when it comes to relaxing, I designed a tea called Unwind Tea. And it's similar to deep sleep tea, but doesn't have all the things that make you sleepy. So it has ashwagandha. It has ashwagandha. It has brahmi. It has these very relaxing herbs that reduce cortisol. Because what I was finding was I'd go through my workday and I'm so fiery and focused. And then I'd go to pick up my kids and it was like a clash because I'm coming in at 100 miles an hour. They just finished a school day. And we would just have this like explosive moment. And I was like, wow, I'm not a good mom. This is not working for me. And so I finally realized I need a ritual of transition between work and home or between work and kids. And I need something that'll actually wind me down, not amp me up. Because a lot of times at 2 or 3, we're reaching for more caffeine because we want to keep going.
Yeah.
And so I do that. I do a 2:30 caffeine. But around 4 or 5 o'clock, when I'm cut my caffeine off for the day, I have Unwind Tea. And some days I have 2 cups because I need to like really notch my energy down to transition to home life. And so that tea, I almost called it anxiety tea because I thought it's something we struggle with. So Unwind Tea is very powerful for that. I have a tea called Menopause Support Tea. That one has shatavari, it has tulsi in it. So it helps with hot flashes, night sweats, but also with fiery mood and mood issues that we can have in perimenopause, menopause. So I have that one twice a day because I'm like, I need menopause support as well. Deep sleep tea I designed to give us better quality sleep at night. And then I made one called detox tea because in Ayurveda, we're big believers in detoxing. That one has matcha, triphala, which is good for gut health, ginger, curcumin, all good for gut health. So that one's like a detox support tea that you can use throughout the day, but cut off at your caffeine cutoff time because it is matcha. And then I made my turmeric formulas. So turmeric gold is like my classic formula that you can take as your everyday turmeric supplement. But I also made one called inflammation relief. And that one is curcumin, boswellia, dried ginger, amla, which is an antioxidant, guduchi. It's like a ancient formulation to approach inflammation in a very gentle way. So it's like the orchestra of herbs to address inflammation in a way the body understands. And so it was my orthopedic surgeons 10 years ago who put the two together, and they called that my pain solution bundle. And they're like, everyone should just take this, and it's great. And I'm like, okay, I didn't think of that, but you guys thought of it. That's perfect. And so we have thousands of people who take that month after month, and then they tell me I don't have the joint pain, the aches, anything that was plaguing before. I take those and I'm winning. And then finally, I made some gummies because I'm always trying to solve for sleep and giving us high quality sleep. I'm obsessed with sleep, so we win at inflammation. And so I have these sleep gummies that have their own cult following. And people come up to me at my gym and they're like, I love the gummies and you better never get rid of those gummies. And so they take them for travel. I take them when I travel. I take them for jet lag, or I keep them on my nightstand. And if I ever wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh my God, it's 2 a.m. Why am I awake? I'll take one gummy just to get 2 to 3 hours of sleep. And so I play with those and I watch my sleep. I track my sleep. And so it's just really important to me that we get good sleep so that we can win at our immune health, our gut health, our inflammation, everything.
That's amazing. So I'm going to order a bunch of the teas, and I love a gummy, so I'm going to order some gummies too.
Yeah. I mean, lately I'm trying to take so many supplements, right? We're living through an age where we know what we're deficient in. For me, I'm always deficient in vitamin B, vitamin D, all these things. And then on top of it, I know I'm inflamed just living in modern day life. So I take my turmeric. And so we kind of need like I keep a drawer of all my supplements that I take.
Yeah.
And so some of them can be gummies and be fun. I find that much easier.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so as we wrap up, I know there are people listening that are like, I'm so overwhelmed right now. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to take. If there is one insight from the inflammation code that they could apply this week, what would that be?
I would say start with sleep. Start with honoring sleep as your most important health habit. Sometimes we're so focused on the workout and the diet and controlling so many things, and we put sleep last. And if you instead put sleep first, you could have a whole different life. Because if we move up that sleep time as close as we can to 10, we don't have to be perfect, but as close to 10 as you can get it. And then you also focused on some sleep hygiene or sleep rituals before bed, you could transform everything. Because sleep is when we clear inflammation, clear lymphatic repair. We really rejuvenate all tissues and organs of the body. So sleep is my first pillar. I'm obsessed with sleep. It's why I do discovery calls with people on my website. I'm like, book 20 minutes with me and let's talk about it. I just want to like troubleshoot this with you and make sure you're sleeping well. Because when I get a great night's sleep, I am the happiest kid on the block. And when I don't get good sleep, it's hell on wheels and no one wants to know me. And so I believe sleep is that cornerstone pillar that we can start with to win at inflammation.
Interesting is I just did the upgrade on my Apple Watch. And so I've always tracked my sleep, like the number of hours, but now it's tracking the quality. And so I'm a little surprised at like duration of sleep only being one of the elements of the quality.
Yeah, I have an Aura ring that I wear. There's the Whoop band, there's the Aura ring, there's even your Fitbit. I tell whenever I'm working with a client, I'm like, please track your sleep.
Yeah.
Because by tracking it, you'll all of a sudden start looking at it. So just in the last week, I started tracking and I'm like, why do I wake up at midnight? What is that awake moment that's happening? What is that? Or why is my deep sleep only 18%? Let's increase that. What's happening there? And so you start to really bring in more and more of your sleep hygiene rituals because you're like, I wonder which one moves the needle. And that gamification of it is kind of something that's fun. And I think nowadays we enjoy that a lot. And so I like it as a data set that tells me, okay, what do I need to be doing to get the real deep sleep in the right window to when it might happen. So tracking your sleep is another level. I'd say start with just good sleep. But if you can't start tracking your sleep, that informs you as well.
I love that, the idea of the gamification. You're right. That is what it is. I get really excited to know my sleep score every morning. I'm like, what was the sleep score?
Exactly. Me too. I love it.
Dr. Gupta, thank you so much for being here. I learned so much. We will have all your information in the show notes. So a link to the book, we'll have a link to your supplements, and we will give everyone a code so they can get a little bit off of the supplements. But I'm going to order them today. So I'm so excited. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you all for listening to Sisters in Sobriety. And we will see you next week. This was Sisters in Sobriety.
Thank you for listening and being with us today.
If you want to learn more about sobriety and meet your community, find us at sistersinsobriety.substack.com.
Are you a sister in sobriety? Then reach out on social media. We'd love to hear from you.
If you're feeling generous, leave us 5 stars and a review and follow us wherever you listen.
You'll never miss an episode. Until next time.